Hey everyone, welcome back to Backseat Admiral and Ion Radio. If you're in the chat, welcome. Let me know if you can hear me just fine. I realized that OBS didn't save anything that I did from my last Backseat Admiral stream, so I had to crash make it in the last 15 minutes. So I need to make sure that everything is functioning just fine and you guys can hear me. So it's been a while. The last time I did a backseat was right after Worlds, and that was months ago at this point. It's kind of crazy how time flies. And we're finally back to awesome. Thank you very much. Finally back to normal Armada episodes. We had Rapid Reinforcements 2 drop on us out of nowhere. So we started making those. So everything's been kind of crazy. So welcome to the chat, MZ, and I'm gonna butcher names. Demir, welcome. So today we're going to be talking about Season 6, Episode 4, and the fleet builds, the things that went well and things that did not go well in the match. So, like always, if you haven't watched the match, you should watch it first. This is going to be all spoilers from here on out. Yeah. Ken and I have been really busy. We have, well, for one, my wife's schedule changed, so that changes my schedule a bit. That's one of the reasons why I haven't been doing backseats as much. So everything's good with that. Then we were trying to record a bunch of stuff for Rapid Reinforcements 2, which you guys already got an episode on. And we have more on the way, and we were really just waiting for FAQs to come down because some of it was just not playable really without an official FAQ. So glad that we got the FAQs for that. Not necessarily happy with the FAQs that we got, but it is something to move forward with. So we already had an episode filmed up prior to FAQs, and we're just going to release it as it is, and I think you guys will enjoy the mayhem that is. That's going to be in a couple weeks, though. So back to Season 6, though, Episode 4. So in this one, Ken plays Plo Koon, and this list is brought to us by Summer. She writes for the Goonhammer Armada articles. If you haven't read them, they're pretty good, and you should check them out. And then I played a Sloan list, and the Sloan list is kind of really experimental in the different ideas that I have put into it. It's been I think 2 years almost since I've played a Sloan list. So I don't necessarily think this is a good Sloan list. I just really wanted to do a couple fun things with the Sloan list. I enjoy Sloan interceptors, and they don't really have enough health to really carry them that long. So I'll talk about how I would make a better Sloan ball. Specifically what I saw at Worlds do well with Sloan balls, and just fighters in general for the Empire when we get to it. So if you guys have any questions or comments you want to ask me, go ahead and hit them up in the comments, and then I'll get to them when I get to a break point for the fleet discussion. So let's watch into it. Okay, so like I said, it's Plo Koon versus Sloan. One of the reasons why we did this matchup is that they're both fighter commanders, and we kind of pairing fleets off against each other that are both fighter centric or red dice centric, just to have fun matchups. I think Plo Koon is really good, and I think Plo Koon's going to be amazing with Matchstick, the new Republic fighter from Rapid Reinforcements 2, because he can. I already was spamming the Y-wing bombers. So here's more rogue. I don't even have to command this now, and I can just scoot around. Yes, please. I think that's going to be really good. I can then just command my few squadrons that I need with my Venator, and have them anti-squadron. A lot of times I will just use Ahsoka on a Venator as the officer to gain snipe, and then flight controllers, and here's a Y-wing sniping you, which is just really funny. And then you're going to have the matchstick then come in, and then all the rest of the Y-Wings are just going to bomb you. It's going to be amazing. So let's get into my fleet. So my fleet has a bunch of different ideas that we're going to be talking about with this, but it's a Quasar, it's an Imperial Venator, and it's a Raider with TIE Interceptors as the primary units for them. So the Raider is a lifeboat Raider. It has Admiral Sloan on it. It has reserve hangar deck because I like interceptors coming back to life. It's just really annoying. And then Corvus because then I can put it wherever I want to keep it safe. And put it out, deploy my fighters, and then put it somewhere else. It also is a completely hard counter to surprise attack if I have to choose surprise attack in any case. It's just really good how it is. Also, Raiders are like super sneaky. If you can first last them in, you can get them out safely usually. Then I have this monstrosity, and this is like one of my favorite ways to run a Venator, and that's really why I put it here, because typically I like running Sloan with an ISD Kuat or an ISD2. Recently I've been leaning more toward ISD2s. I think they're more versatile. But this Venator has a wallop of a punch if you can get it in close. It has Emperor Palpatine on it to flip defense tokens as you come in. Local fire control, so then you have double salvo, so then it's like, you shoot me, you flip a token, I shoot you, you're probably going to flip more tokens, and then when I hit you with all of my dice, hopefully your tokens just go away, or I've been able to Sloan them off, and then you just have to eat all of this all at once. So you have electronic countermeasure, because you really need to use the brace to stay alive, and then external racks to add black dice, and then one of the most expensive cards in the game, expanded launchers, which allows you to add 2 more black dice to the front. So in that one glorious turn that you're at close range, you can roll 2 reds, 2 blues, 2 blacks, plus 2 blacks with expanded launchers, plus 2 blacks with external racks for a grand total of 10 dice. And over 50% of them actually it's like 75% of them have double hits on it. So if you get lucky, you're going to be cruising in damage. And then XI7 says, LOL, redirects don't matter. So if you can't Sloan off their brace, they eat all of it because XI7 says that they can't move it anywhere. It's a crazy good combo, and the way I run it is my objective, as you guys know, we saw it play, is advanced gunnery. So if I get in close to a big ship, it just smashes things. You have to roll damage for that to work, but that's neither here nor there. So I like it. My verdict on it, though, in a Sloan fleet overall is a nay. Yeah, I think the ISD just is a better platform for Sloan than this. But this is fun, so sometimes fun is just good. And then we have here a Quasar Fire class cruiser carrier. It has Wing Commander, which is a really expensive card, and I know I talk about this all the time whenever I use it on my Quasars, but it gives me absolute control of what I can do with my Quasars. Considering that slicers exist, and after that would be like Worlds 2019 or 2018 or something like that, I got sliced, and there's like multiple matches that not a single time I was able to activate my Quasar. This is a hard counter to slicers. I don't care what my dial is, I'm gonna just do squadrons anyway. And it works really, really well with Pursuant, because if you don't reveal a squadron dial, you can just add a squadron dial. This is also a hard counter to Draven, as we've learned with the FAQs for Draven, because Pursuant gets around that. And like, there's usually one turn that your Quasar absolutely needs to jump from speed 2 to speed 3 or slow down. So a lot of times you can start a Quasar at speed 1, jump it to 2, or start it at 2. And then first turn you take a token of nav, and then your entire stack is just navs with Wing Commander. And then you just, before you reveal, like, I'm going to take a squadron. This is a squadron. Squadron. Done. And then on that turn that you need squadrons and you need to get away, then you use pursuing and you don't switch it. And you're like, oh, it's a nav again. I'm going to use it. Pursuant gives me the squadron, and now I get both. And I'm going to cruise up to speed 3 and get away. I have flight controllers because Sloan loves blue dice. Boosted comms because you need to reach out and keep the Quasar safe. Note, I have boosted comms. Ken does not. We'll get to that later. And then reserved hangar deck instead of expanded hangars here, just to bring interceptors back. I prefer to activate more with Sloan, but it is what it is. So let's check out the fighters I brought. I brought Sloan's favorite fighter, which is Merrick Steele, because he's the most likely to roll in an accuracy or hold on, I just realized that my face isn't on this. Give me a second. This is part of the problem when everything goes down. Add in. I'm changing this on the fly. Where is it? Video capture device. That's good. There we go. Okay, getting everything back up to norm because OBS decided not to save any of my presettings, which is really frustrating. So Mark Steele is the best Sloan fighter there is because he rolls 2 blue dice against ships, and then if you don't get an accuracy, you just flip something over to a crit if you don't already have a crit in your thing, and then Sloan lets you re-roll it. So you have like basically 3 chances to get accuracies with him. He's just really good. And then Jendon, his best friend, makes him do it again. Cool. So now I have like 6 chances to roll an accuracy to try to get rid of that brace, so that Venator can print charter. So that's always fun. And then we have Hull Runner, who helps all the TIE interceptors that I'm going to show you in a second to add more dice. So with flight controllers and Hull Runner, you're rolling like 6 dice against every single person, and fighters can spend out other fighters' tokens. So like that's a really good like anti-squadron setup that you can just use to kill all the squadrons right away. In most games, if you just kill all the squadrons of the other player, you're probably going to win. So I always see Sloan as more of a anti-squadron list than like Plo Koon, who's pretty much a straight anti-ship squadron bit list. And then like if your squadrons with Sloan are bombing ships, the other player's probably already lost because most people bring a fighter screen. So if you've wiped out all those fighters, you're probably gonna take that game. Then we have Saber. I love Saber with Sloan specifically and Jendon in flight controllers because in Hull Runner, like all of those together makes Saber really, really good because he can come in and he can do that super snipe for 6 against a target that usually has counter. Like he can like wipe out Shara Bay really fast, and Anakin in this case, he can shoot Anakin down from range because you just spend the scatter, do damage, and then the next attack when Jendon does it, you lose the 1 dice because of flight controller, so it's like 5 dice, and now you spend the scatter completely out, and you can usually kill off aces that are scatter like that, and it's just worth the 12 points just to bring it, just to do that. And then I have 4 TIE interceptors, and if you've counted, I also have 2 reserved hangar decks, so that means I can bring back 2 of these guys to be really, really pesky and annoying the entire time. So it's like me having 6 TIE interceptors. But if you notice, I had, what's that, 4? I have 8 squadrons, and the Quasar can only command 4. This is where I enjoy having a ISD-2 more so than the Venator, because a lot of times in like that crucial turn that you have to have air superiority, the ISD would also do a squadron command, and so the Quasar would push pretty much all interceptors / Saber squadron, and then the ISD would push everything else that's not going to necessarily benefit as much from the flight controllers, like Merrick Steele and Jendon and things like that, as you want to get your cheaper units in there first to whack things down with as many dice as possible. So that's kind of like my thought process on this. But I think a better Sloan build is actually TIE Defenders, because they're just more reliable and they can withstand the flak. We've seen a huge increase in flak recently. And let's see. Let me build this out real fast. Like you saw in this episode, Ken moved his Pelta in and it just started whacking my fighters right out of the sky, because they're really, really weak to that. So the basic Sloan fighter list that I would bring now is Colonel Agendon, because he's just way too good, because he has relay, so you can go farther away from your Quasar and things like that. And then you bring, I've already mentioned him, Merrick Steele, because he's the best squadron for Sloan. And then you bring Darth Vader. And Darth Vader doesn't benefit, TIE Defender Darth Vader. Darth Vader doesn't benefit from Sloan, but Darth Vader is a monster to clear the skies and then go after ships. And that's really, really important when you are Sloan, because I already said if you can win the squadron battle, then everything can go after it, and you probably already won the game. Then you bring, I think it's 2 TIE Defenders, Valen and Saber Squadron. And then you have more points, so you can throw in there also a single TIE Interceptor. So that's 134 points right there. So Jendon, Steele, Darth Vader, Defender, 2 Defenders, Valen, because Valen's just really annoying to fight, and you can lock things down then with TIE Interceptors or Defenders to keep them there. Saber Squadron, and then 1 TIE Interceptor, because it's at this point it's like the cheap thing. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squadrons, which is the same as me. And then you can dedicate the Quasar to just being a carrier pusher instead of having reserve. Like, you can have reserve if you want, keep it on the Raider, and then the Quasar can switch the reserved hangar out for expanded, so then you can activate more of your squadrons all at once. So that's, I think, one of the best squadron balls for the Imperials right now. But I wasn't necessarily trying to make the best squadron ball ever for this game. I just enjoy playing TIE Interceptors, so I decided I'd play TIE Interceptors. I'm actually really excited for that new guy. I always forget his name. Let me look it up real fast. He's the Vault. I actually really like Vault, and I don't like him because I think he's good. I think he's fun. And like building a list around just that squadron to make him do like counter 8 or something stupid, I think is a lot of fun. And I think he has no chance of ever replacing any of the main, let's say, 6 to 7 squadrons that the Imperial typically use in their 4-squadron ace limit. But I think if you're just playing a fun game, bringing him would be cool. And I think he would work really, really well with Sloan, especially if you could force someone to counter you, because like counters all blue dice. So goodbye defense tokens, because if you can pump them up to 7 counter, which isn't necessarily hard. That's Hal Runner and it's Dengar, and then it's that instructor dude that you can put on a ship. And that's counter 7. You're gonna roll an accuracy. Like, you should be rolling 2 accuracies at those odds, and then like get rid of your scatter and take 6 damage. It's just crazy good. So that's fun. I think he's good. Okay, so let's check out now Summer's list. What's kind of funny is Ken and I had already planned on doing a Plo Koon versus Sloan match. So Ken actually had his own Plo Koon list that we were going to run. And then this is actually a while back when he did the interview with Summer on Datalink. If you haven't watched it, you should go check it out. It's always cool to have other content creators on our channel to talk about where they are, how they've gotten into Armada and things like that. And Ken does a good job of interviewing them, so you guys should check that out. We actually have like a whole series of just data link interviews of people that are in Armada. And he asked her if she wanted to give him a list, and she gave him a Plo Koon list. And I'm like, perfect. Slap that right into this. So let's check out this list. Here's a good picture of it. It is a Venator 1 class Star Destroyer with Plo Koon, who, you know, I love Plo Koon. Plo Koon automatically gets to put a blue accuracy in if a ship's in distance 3 of the defending ship. So if you have bombers, it just rips them to shreds. It also gives all your ships grit if you're around a squadron with Adept. Beautiful. After Worlds, I know I've talked about this in my Worlds wrap-up, and I've talked about it on Command Stack, but I have grown such an appreciation for grit recently, and I think it's great. And I never really considered it before Worlds, and I think that's one of the cool things when you go play people that you don't normally play. You see completely different play styles, and then you can learn things from that. And I take grit very seriously now, and if I was building competitive fleets, it's one of the things I actually take into consideration. I'm like, but could I add a squadron with grit here? Because it was so important in so many matches for myself and my opponent, that grit. So it's amazing. A skilled first officer here. I'm not a big fan of skilled first officer, but that has to do with how I build fleets. But it's 1 point, so you might as well, if you have a point and you want to use it. I'll explain that strange statement, though. When I build a fleet, Ken can attest to this, because when I talk about certain fleets, I'll send him this, like, nonsense scribble. And it would be like, okay, here's the fleet. And then it's like, for example, this last match. So Quasar would be n/n/n/n/n/n/n/n, because I only plan on doing navs with it. And then like the Venator would have been n/n/n question mark e/e/e/n. And so what I plan on doing in that is like turn 1 is nav, turn 2 is nav, turn 3 maybe nav, maybe engineering, depending on the setup that I deploy it at. And then the next turn probably is going to be engineering, probably engineering, and then the last turn maybe engineering, maybe nav, depending on the way the board looks. So I have already all my commands planned out with the list before I get to the table, really regardless of what the enemy fleet has. So I don't use skilled first officer, because usually I feel, this is just me, but if you have a plan and you're suddenly changing it in the middle of the game, something's gone wrong, and you should just stick to your plan. I know if you go back to early episodes of Ion Radio and you watch Ken and me play, you don't get it on camera, but I scold Ken because we're like in the middle of a squadron battle, and then like his main squadron fleet ship like throws up like a confire. I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? And he's like, well, why would I need that? All my fighters are dead. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't know that when you placed that tile. You just assumed you were going to lose the squad battle. It's better to have that squadron and activate something than just assume you're going to lose the battle and then switch over to confire. Like, stick to your plan. Because you had, like, he would have had to have done it like turn 1, put a confire when it's like a carrier. Stack the squadrons the entire way down. He doesn't really do that anymore, so I'm glad he learned that. But that's one of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of skilled first officer unless you're feeding him to Officer Darth Vader to throw away. Then you have intensify firepower, flak guns, external racks, and DBY A27, which is going to be the most prevalent card in the GAR moving forward with Commander Anakin. Intensify firepower was hugely important for Ken in this match. It's one of the reasons why the Venator went down to the best of, like, it went down very, very well. Like, Intensify did work in this game. Flat guns is good because then you can reach out farther with your salvo. External racks is just cheap and extra dice are good. Everything about this just is good. Acclimator 1 class assault ship. It has Hondo. It has flight controllers. It has hyperspace rings, which is something we don't see very often. It has expanded hangar bay, external racks, Novota B, and boosted comms. No, it doesn't have boosted comms. But Ken's original list, and this is where I have to bring that up because his original list actually looked very similar to this, except instead of hyperspace rings, it had boosted comms. So when we were playing the game, we were just thinking about his old list, and that's the reason why we probably made the mistake that we did. But this is really, really strong for the GAR, because with expanded hangar bays, you get up to 4 squadrons, and that means you can put 4 fighters in hyperspace rings, which is 2 complete deployments before the before you have to put a ship down, which is crazy when you think about it. It's just really, really good. And then Novota B and flight controllers is really good for them too, because it's like, here's an extra dice and you'll get to re-roll it, and you'll get to re-roll it against ships, and you're Plo Koon, so if you're rolling against ships, you're automatically already gaining an accuracy. Good. This is a great way to use acclimators. I really, really like acclimators. I prefer acclimator 2s, but that's because of the defensive retrofit, and I like EWS on it. But acclimators are really good, like, specific ships. They're like really good gun ships if you equip them that way. And then like this is a really good carrier for not a crazy amount of points if you don't want to bring like a Ven 2. The problem with a Ven 2 carrier is that it's usually your only big ship and it's your carrier, while this type of fleet with the Ven 1 wanting to go in and bruise and crash into things, and then this is the carrier, and they have separate roles, I think is pretty good. Last ship is kind of like your standard Pelta transport with clone navigational and munitions, and this is just basically to supply tokens over to the other 2 ships to keep intensify firepower going and things like that. Okay. So for squadrons, you have Anakin Skywalker in his Delta 7, which is really, really good. Probably won't be seen this much anymore because of Anakin Skywalker Commander. Salvokin is just crazy bonkers. You have Oddball, which links really well with Plo Koon, because you get to reroll your dice, and if your ship's near it, then it's an accuracy, and then you should, with Bomber, almost guarantee get 2 damage plus an accuracy, which is crazy. Axe, which should be used to keep your Anakin alive. You have 3 ARC 170s, and they just are firepower machines. And then a V19 Torrent, which, you know, is there to help keep Anakin alive. It's this way on your guys' screen. Up there. So, this is a pretty good squad ball. There's only one source of Adept, but at the point if Anakin's dead, you're probably going to be losing the squadron game, honestly, because his job is to do as much damage as possible to clear the airway for all your bombers. There's a lot of health to chew through here, especially with Escort and Axe keeping things alive. That's a lot of health. So that's about it. So I'm going to look at the comments. If you guys have any comments about the fleets or thoughts or anything like that, put them in here. And then we're going to jump into objectives and then how the game played out. So transition a few things and get stuff lined up. Okay, Ken is in the chat. Good morning, Richard. And yeah, Vault. I just enjoy Vault. He's just a fun squadron to play with. Yeah, Ken gets a lot of the commander notation that I send over. I think the first couple of times I sent it to him, I didn't explain what I was doing. So it was just like, here's a whole paragraph of garble. And then I was busy and I walked away and didn't message him back. And he was just like, I don't know what you're talking about. Is it a counter to slicer tools? No, that is a possibility for the Venator. But here's the question with the Venator. What would they slice you to? And does it really matter? Because it's not a fighter carrier. It's not the fighter pusher. Um, and like if you get a squadron, you can't actually activate all of your squadrons with the acclimator. So okay, cool. I'll activate them with the Venator. You're not using Confire dials because you're saving them as a token. So it's not like you're stacking the Venator with Confire. Maybe a nav. Like there's not necessarily a bad thing for the Venator to be doing. So I wouldn't necessarily worry about it being sliced. That's kind of my opinion. And if the things that carry slicers, typically we're seeing hard cells, which is carried by the CIS, who's very light fighter. So you should be able to wipe out all their fighters in one turn, and then your arcs should annihilate it before it's getting into slicer range, where you deal with slicer for one turn. Or rebels, you see a lot of slicers, or Imperial, and those are Gazantes, and you'll be able to murder them in like 3 attacks from arcs if you roll decently with the automatic Plo Koon. If they're in range to do it, they're dead. So I wouldn't necessarily worry about slicing the Venator. I'm more worried about the acclimator being sliced because it's your carrier, and that Venator just will eat the slice just to keep going. So I don't know. That's kind of my opinion on that. Keep Anakin alive until you snipe him out of the sky with saber. Yes. Bring Anakin here. I will kill him. So, how would you adjust the Plo Koon list to perform a bit better? Switch out all the arcs for Y-Wings, but that's just my personal preference. I just love Y-Wings way better than... Like, let's just stop for a moment and look at Y-Wings specifically for Gar, point for point compared to almost every other squadron in the entire game. They're speed 3, which is like the average of speeds for fighters, right? Let me pull this up, actually. Give me a second. And we'll just look right at a Y-Wing. No Y-Wing. Let's go to Slicer. Give me a second while I'm doing this. Where is the Gar? Anyway, we won't worry about it. I'll just keep chattering. So a Y-Wing costs 10 points. That's pretty cheap. You have cheaper TIE fighters and things like that, which are like at that 8-point range. And then you have more expensive things like X-Wings and V-19s, which are like the 12+ point range. It has 2 anti-squadron dice, which is a blue and a black, which means that more than likely you're going to come up with 1 point of damage every time you attack, which, oddly enough, is one of the most annoying points of damages that you can possibly do with a fighter, because it's not necessarily enough to scatter, and you can't brace it. And when you have small little tiny fighters like the Empire or CIS, like 1 damage is 1/3 of your health, and you have like a bazillion and a half Y-Wings. So sometimes they'll roll high and roll 2 damage, and then it's like, okay, well, I still take 1. You can slowly eat something away quickly. And I know that sounds really stupid. And then if you have like flight controllers in there, it goes from blue, blue, black, which is actually really good. That's one of the best things that you can roll with like vulture droids when they get the AI. And then their anti-ship is black bomber. So like I roll a hit, you're taking a hit. You're probably not going to have me re-roll it, because rolling into a hit crit is just way, way worse. It has 6 hulls, so it's one of the strongest hull ships, like point for point, Y-Wings are amazing. So I would take Y-Wings, but that's me. Like, even like when we look at arcs, right? So let's multiply it out. So if you take 2 arcs for 30 points, that gives you 14 points of hull. Versus if you had 3 Y-Wings, you actually have 18 points of hull. That's 4 extra hull on a different target. So more than likely to get, let's just say each attack will only be 3 damage. It will take 3 attacks roughly to kill an arc out, but it's going to take still 2 attacks to kill out a Y-Wing, regardless of like low high points of damage. While an arc, you could get really lucky and you could kill it in 2. So like the defense there is almost the same. It's 1 faster than it. Its anti-squadron, I say, is equivalent because I don't count the red dice in arcs because red dice are red dice. It has counter, and it has more blue dice, but it doesn't have heavy. So you can lock squadrons down with it. I don't know. Point for point, I would just rather take 3 Y-Wings and go from there. But that's just me. Matchstick. Yeah, you could add matchstick into Plo Koon. I was talking about that earlier. But with Y-Wings, it would be really good. Yeah, I personally think skilled first officer is mainly just there for Vader, but that's me as well. Okay, let's jump back into it. Let me pull up this image, switch on over. Let's talk about this game. So I mentioned this in the wrap up of our video that we actually deployed the first time, and I'm like, we're not doing this. We gotta redo this because also, let's back up to Y-Wings. I just had something else pop in my head. One of the ways I use them is with snipe, and you can just for a second think about how annoying that is because with flight controllers and Ahsoka, a Y-Wing becomes a 3 blue dice snipe, and so you can move these slow Y-Wings into range and just pew. Here's 3 dice. How they land, and guess what? I'm heavy, so you still have to move into engagement range with me, and I probably have like a Jedi holding down the line there to give them grit, so I can snipe one thing and then all my Y-Wings can move. It's just really good. I like Y-Wings. Moving on back to the game. So he had Anakin hyperspace ring like right in front of me, and I'm like, okay, well, all your aces are sitting in front of me. I can just drop all my squad ball here, and I'll murder all your aces before you can activate. This isn't even going to be a game, so we're going to redeploy. And it came up with this deployment, and this deployment was way better, which made an interesting game. So if we see here, these 2 arcs went down right here first, and then this V19 went down here. Corvus dropped here and just all my squadrons here because I'm figured like if we move across the board from what I can see, we're going to activate here, kill squadrons, hopefully hit something, and then run. And Ken selected my advanced gunnery, and it's really just for LOLs with the Venator that I have advanced gunnery, because if I can hit you with advanced gunnery and expanded launchers 2 times in the same turn, it's just crazy. It's just stupid. But it's fun, and that's what this list was about. But an acclimator and like a hard sell are actually really good ships to put advanced gunnery on because they don't actually cost that much. But they have a significant amount of long range fire. Like 3 red dice from a hard sell or an acclimator is no joke. That's actually more long range firepower than my Venator that's advanced gunnery has. So if you can get it into range of 2 things, you're just 3 dice, and then like that's good for you for advanced gunnery. And then like you're more than likely never gonna put like what's it called? Gunnery teams on a hard sell or an acclimator for the most part. So you don't have that like counter effect for the cannot on the card. So this is deployment, and let's go to first turn. This is the first turn, and I move my whole squadron ball behind the station, and I rolled an ungodly amount of misses. And I think we figured it out. It was like I rolled a total of like 4 damage or something like that on like 28 blue dice, which is just crazy. I'm like, if I can't kill things that are just sitting in front of me, this is going to be a very terrible game. But this is where we make our first mistake for this, is that when we go to activate this turn, we measure Ken's activation range as being long range instead of medium range, because we were thinking when it was Ken's fleet and not Summer's fleet, it had boosted comms on it, which would have reached. But if you look at this squadron here, which I think is that's the kickback or whatever, it's the V19 Ace, is actually the only squadron that's in activation range of the acclimator here. So when he alpha strikes in onto my squadrons here, he technically couldn't have done that. And like he activated like the arcs on the station, which obstructed plus flight controller does a significant amount of damage when you just drop that pesky red dice, because it doesn't matter because red dice are terrible for the obstruction. So that would have greatly changed how the squadron battle took place, because it's out of activation range. So we actually traded valuable assets right away. Like he killed out Hall Runner. I think I killed off Anakin right away. And then Ken slowed down his acclimator, which was good because then I didn't get a shot. And like when the Venator's coming in, especially facing down another advanced gunnery ship, it needs to try to get as much damage in as possible, as fast as possible, to make it worthwhile to kill it, then move on to something else. And just delaying it outside of range is like terrible for me. So let's jump to the next turn. Squad ball over here. This is long range. And like what I was telling you guys earlier, is like the Venator is actually really weak at long range because it's only 2 red dice, which is barely anything. Like the acclimator at long range is actually outgunning this Venator right now because it has 3 red dice. So even though I can shoot twice, like it's not necessarily a really good shot. And with the Pelta and the Venator being able to do intensify firepower, those red dice back at me are actually very, very strong. But we can also see here then this turn as well, none of the fighters are in activation range because this to here is long range. So if you like draw a circle from where my Star Destroyer is around, all of those squadrons here are at long range, which isn't medium, so they couldn't be activated either. So yeah, so we're just blowing each other up with, you know, non-damage. Neither of us could roll damage for a couple turns. And this is where I made a very, very huge mistake. And I thought I was safe, but it was just sometimes line of sight lines just are funny. I decided to, like, if you look at where my Ven is, what I should have done is I should have moved my Ven straight into the acclimator. I needed to secure that kill before going on to anything else. And in my head, doing damage calculations, I'm like, I'll kill it off right away and it's not going to matter. I can eat some damage. But what I didn't figure was that the advanced gunnery ship at close range is going to shoot me in the front and then shoot me in the side. And now I have no defense tokens. And while I will kill it in like one shot, cool. But I've now taken way more damage than my Venator can ever survive. Even with like engineering, like it's not going to come back. And this, like after I activate, I'm going to be close range double arced by a Pelta at black range, which is bleh, 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 terrible. And it ends up killing you. I'll show you the damage. I go from full health to dead in one turn. That's all thanks to Intensify firepower, just guaranteeing damage to come through. Like every single shot does damage, and I have no tokens. Like it's gonna die really fast. And with that being my most expensive ship, even if I kill all of Kent, you know how I was talking about it. Usually, if you kill all the enemy fighters, you're gonna win. Well, not unless your advanced gunnery ship goes down. If your advanced gunnery ship goes down, you're gonna lose. Just because of how many points it is. So, like, I kill his acclimator, I get barely anything. He kills my venator, that's a lot of points. Squadron battle is finishing up, and Sloane on her little Corvette is like, peace, I'm out of here. So you're gonna see me jump pretty soon as far away as I can. What's been fun is I've been using Jendon with her to activate squadrons in. Like, why just waste her in the background when you can be activating stuff? So yep, there goes the venator, there goes the acclimator. A lot of damage is actually on this venator as well. I think we're up to 4 right now. Ken had a terrible roll turn with the acclimator, and my Quasar survived an entire turn extra that I didn't think it was going to survive, so that was fun. I clean up all of his squadrons, and my Raider's going to go away, but this is what I was talking about with, like, why the TIE Defenders are better than Interceptors when you have Sloane, because they have 6 hull, and, like, this Pelta is going to come through here, even obstructed. Like, there's just so much flak dice that are going to be going out at them over 3 hull TIE Interceptors. Like, he cleans up a good chunk of my fighters on the last couple turns. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Quasar goes down. This cleans up fighters. This flies away. This flies over here. Game done. So, let's look at that Venator going down. Okay, full health. Cool, full health. Cool, full health. Hold on. There it is. Full health. Dead. No tokens. I have like a redirect that doesn't matter when you don't have shields, but that's over 1 turn. It's a pretty fast go down. I don't know if I've ever had a Venator go down that fast before, but that's just getting melted by advanced gunnery, and then that Pelta did a lot of damage at the end. And as you can see, like, a little bit of damage to that acclimator to dead. And I actually had quite a bit of damage on the other Venator, which is why I was already starting to turn in, because in my head I'm like, this acclimator is not going to matter. It really did matter, because I put it into an arc that it could shoot both. And then that's it. Let's look at the score. So final score was 261 points of ships destroyed for Ken, plus 100 points for advanced gunnery, and then 361 total points. And then myself, I scored 212, which is mainly just eating up all of the squadrons, and then his acclimator, obviously. And then the acclimator's worth 66 points, which we both got a kick out of, because that's funny, because, you know, we're killing clones. Or the Jedi, however you want to look at it. And then for 278 for an MOV of 83 for 7-4 Ken's way. So congrats to Ken on that. Yeah, that's kind of the game. It was a fun game. There's a lot of dice being thrown by both sides, and sometimes they came up as hits, and a lot of times, like the first couple of rounds of squadrons, like just no damage was being done. So if you guys have any thoughts or comments on the game, let me know in the comments. And I'm going to go back through the comments and see if anyone's chatting about stuff now. Yes, Y-Wings are awesome. I used to fly Y-Wings as rebels with, like, Nora. That's fun to do, especially if I did it with Dodana, and it's just like an entire swarm of Y-Wings, and then I had a Ruthless Strategist. I love Ruthless Strategist. I put Ruthless on any list that I can, because it's fun, especially with Y-Wings. And like, people don't know how to, people just assume Y-Wings are bad, and then they like move all their fighters into you, and you're like, okay, 1 damage with a Y-Wing, 1 damage with a Y-Wing, 1 damage with a Y-Wing, and then I flak 1 damage plus Ruthless, you're dead. It's a fun combo. So Right, you wouldn't normally pay for gunnery teams for those shifts, but a free one is good. Yeah, hard cells are just amazing advanced gunnery. Like usually if you think you can outmaneuver their advanced gunnery ship, a hard cell advanced gunnery ship is like, here's 60 points, and I'm gonna throw 3 red dice at everything. It's just really good. I really don't get the 2 ARC 70s on the station in deployment. It's mainly to get them farther forward, but they're completely out of activation range. This is one of those traps that... I just bumped everything. My table's super unstable. Give me a second. There we go. One of the traps that I see people do with fighter ambush, people deploy their obstacles all on the other side of the board, and I actually throw all the objectives on my side of the board because I actually want all your fighters on my side of the board for fighter ambush. But if you put your fighters out there, there's nothing to activate them, so they're just sitting ducks until the activation, like the squadron phase. So if you can kill them right away, it's good. I think hyperspace rings best is to deploy kind of in the middle of the table instead of on the far side. That's just me. Yeah, the squadron rolls. It was a sad day for the TIE interceptors. And like even with if I got swarm because it was obstructed, but re-rolling 1 dice might have meant then like out of 6 or 5 dice or whatever, I would have gotten like 1 damage, maybe 2 damage on some of them. It was just kind of ridiculous. He could have used his Anakin power on Holorudder instead of on one of the different interceptors. Yeah, that's true. But Anakin shouldn't have been able to activate and get into range for that anyway. If I recall correctly, Ken missed some healing from the station. Yes, but no, because near the end they were just activating instead of being commanded. So you can't heal in that case. Being able to do a single point of double tap damage on a low hull Imperial Ace is powerful. Yes, it is. Especially with like ordnance pods on Venators and Acclimators is really good too. Yeah, good game. I thought John might be in trouble when he didn't immediately clear Ken's arcs. I knew I was in trouble as soon as that, like I say it off camera. I'm like, I've lost this game, Ken. And he's like, no. And I'm like, all these should have died. Like, statistically 50%, and I rolled 28 dice. 2 of your things should have been dead, not 1 on, like, 1 health. Which is crazy. Inside the station denies their counter. Yeah, it does, but if you're just, again, thinking that they had boosted comms, like putting them there, activating them, and immediately jumping onto the Venator, like the first or second turn, which would have been really good. If I was Ken with the Acclimator there and thought I had boosted comms, I would have pulled both of those arcs off the station and dropped them right in front of the Venator as a first player and dropped all the damage from them into the front of the Venator from the station. That's what I would have done. I would have just left the squadron battle alone because they were already low health at that point and we're probably going to die. So if you could put the damage into a ship, then you might get a leg up on the ship. That's kind of my opinion on that. So it's really it for my opinions on that game. I do want to try to go back and do a Backseat Admiral on our Rapid Reinforcements too, because I thought that was a really good game. I just don't have the time right now because I have to actually go to bed so I can go to work tonight. But I plan on doing that in the future. I just don't know when. I thought I was going to do a double header, but anytime I do a double header, the backseats end up being like almost 2 hours, and that's just too much. But I do want to go back to it. I missed out on, because I was busy, doing the Command Stack episode talking about Rapid Reinforcements too, so they did cover my opinions on a lot of stuff really fast. My opinions are, let's go through squadrons first. Ven is really cool. He's going to be really powerful. I think Volt is not good, but he's fun. I think Matchstick is going to be really, really good for Y-Wings. I already said that a couple times this time around. And then who's left? Watan Bor is actually really good for the CAS, and while it's a squad that will die, it's a squad that will allow the other squadrons to stay along long enough to be able to do their damage into the enemy squadron, which is just what we're all that CIS needs. Like, to keep their Tri-Fighter aces alive for one turn is huge. Like, forcing you to land near PAP to take damage, it's great for them. And then we go to cards. I think people are way underrating Ventress. The idea is not to use her as a token gatherer. It is 100% token denial. And token denial is really, really important currently in the game, with things like ECM having to recharge, people having to use Confire tokens to regenerate things like spats, or powering things like intensify firepower, because usually you have that get passed to it early on in the activation, the way it works. And if Ventress can come out and wipe that off for one turn, like if I could have wiped intensify firepower away from Ken for one turn, that would have saved me like 8 points of damage. Like, it's really important to be able to deny tokens. So I think she's way underrated from what people are thinking. I think she'll be really good. Just pair her with the B2, not even necessarily in a Dooku fleet, launch the B2, pull the token off. Like, it doesn't even matter what token you give them. Cool. Or you do it with TF. Like, why leave it? Like, throw the B2 out there, add your black dice on your one attack, and then pull it off and get rid of one of their tokens. I think that would be good too. Then let's move over to price. I think price is going to be really good, but I think people are way underestimating the fact that there's a shield cost to it, and that shield cost is really, really, really important for the Empire. I'm going to touch on our episode before that Ken and I played when I had price. My Star Destroyer died. The only reason it was still alive was because Madi was holding it together with duct tape. I used her 3 times, and Madi had 3 health on the ISD. If I use price, the ship's gonna die. Especially like things with onagers, the ship's gonna die if I keep using her, because onagers don't have a good way to regenerate shields, and they're already like super, super fragile. Price is decently balanced. She's really good, but decently balanced. Draven, I don't think is going to matter. I think which is good, because I don't like that style of play, like slicer tools. It's the reason why my Quasars look how they do, is I've had such a negative play experience with slicer tools before they had to recharge. You're welcome. I was part of that process. Like, it's good that way. Draven kind of nerfs things, but doesn't really, because you can still use token abilities with it. That leaves Anakin, who's bonkers broken. And when we finally release our episode of Anakin, you guys can see the whole spectrum of, here's conservative Anakin versus crazy Anakin. And I think crazy Anakin isn't really good for the health of the game. And while it's going to shake meta up a lot, I don't think it's healthy for the game. Old Price shook up the meta a lot, and you were forced to build fleets to counter her. But Old Price, like, while changing the activation order, didn't allow a ship to attack 5 times in one turn. Crazy. Well, you spend all your salvo. Cool. If I can spend a defense token to make an additional attack, I'm all about that. Like, that is, like, that's not even really even a cost. Like, if the Venator that Anakin's on no longer has defense tokens, specifically salvo tokens, okay, I've been able to destroy a whole ship in one turn, so I guess I'll lose my salvo tokens. He is not priced at 29 points. Adding 1 die on salvo is priced at 29 points. The rest of it, he should be like 50 points. Minimum 40, which is the top bracket for what Admiral should be. He's just way underpriced for what his power is. So I hope later on they FAQ him to oblivion. But we'll wait to see. So that's kind of my opinion on all of the Rapid Reinforcement 2 stuff. For the most part, I like it, except for Anakin. We will see Anakin in a couple weeks. Ken and I have been in hardcore other mode, not Armada, recently. I think between him and myself in the last week, we spent like 40 plus hours assembling, painting, and getting everything ready for Shatterpoint. We've recorded a couple games of Shatterpoint, so we're excited to be bringing that to you guys. It's a lot of fun. So I can't wait to show it on the channel, and hope you guys enjoy that as well. But yeah, that took up a lot of time. That's one of the reasons why I didn't also do Backseat the last time. It's just when you run out of time, like there's nothing else you can do. So I think that's going to be about it. I'm going to wrap it up and head to bed. So I appreciate you guys all hanging out with me this morning, and I can't wait to do this again. I do plan on going back to doing that Rapid Reinforcement 2 episode that we did, the Dooku versus Mahdi, because I think there's a lot of cool things to talk about in that game, because I think it was a really good match. So we're gonna go back and do that later on. We got Shatterpoint coming out, I think, in the next couple of days when it gets finished editing, and then we're back to Armada after that. That should be our next Armada episode. Should be the Anakin episode. I just gotta edit it. Whenever they're salvoing, editing time drastically increases. So surprise, there's a lot of salvoing. Okay, so again, thank you very much. You've been watching Iron Radio and Backseat Admiral, and I'll talk to you guys later.